Michael's Guitar Reviews. Now, we're talking Yamaha today. This one's a Yamaha RGX 112 with a number of interesting characteristics, but, and believe me, it's a big but. There is an issue that makes this guitar potentially dangerous. I'll come to it in a moment. Here we go. First of all, this is a 1980s characteristic shreddy type guitar, more of which in a moment. It's got some quite positive characteristics really. One of them being that they've thought about the string setting on the headstock here, in that the strings go in a straight line. Some of these, let's call them alternative style guitars, have got quite a pronounced headstock that moves in one direction, and that causes the strings to pull way over to one side. But Yamaha, clever Yamaha, they've made the strings all go in a straight line, which is generally quite a good thing when you consider they've also taken care of the break angle. They've angled this headstock backwards. So had they not done that and the strings were in a straight line, you're going to end up with potentially some buzz problems, and we don't really want those. So nice straight line strings, headstock inclined, giving us a bit of a break angle. In fact, in this case they've not put a string tree in, so they obviously feel it works pretty well. We've got some tuners at the back. These are not expensive tuners, they're relatively cheap, and whilst this guitar has just been restrung and you would expect some tuning aberrations, shall we say, as the strings stretch, these don't seem to stay in tune really all that well. However, they might do given time once the strings have settled down, I don't know. But first impressions, they're not great. Got a black plastic nut. Just want to say a thing about this, or a few things really. The black plastic nut has been cut nice and accurately. The strings sit as they should without being too deep into the recesses. It's smooth. Very often people, manufacturers shall we say, put nuts on and just leave the edges sharp, which, whilst it's not the main danger of this guitar, it's unpleasant, but this one's not, it's smooth. We've got a fairly shallow neck. This is quite shallow, and it complements the fingerboard, which is relatively flat and feels a little wider than a lot of other electric guitars of this sort of type of thing. It just feels a little bit narrower, fairly flat. So consequently, you get a different experience than you would with a guitar with a C or a deeper profile neck and a more contoured fingerboard. So different animal, and very popular, I would imagine, with those shreddy characters. We'll come back to them again in a minute. I've said this already, haven't I? Well, we will come back to them in a minute. Now then, the body shape. You can see it's got these sculpted, look at that, little bit of attention to detail, sculpting, quite pronounced horns, a very light bass wood body. It's really light. I can hold it in one hand. Now, the thing about this guitar, let's just say a little bit about its personal history. It was loaned very kindly to me for me to do this review, but it also required a little bit of work on the electrics, which made me feel that there was something worth saying here. If you're going to buy a used guitar, it's worth taking off the plate that covers the electronics. Now you can see in this case somebody's taken the plate off and lost it. How do you lose a plate off the back of the electrics? They have, and they've made one out of a piece of perspex, which looks a little bit like roughly the shape, but isn't really. The main reason I want to mention this though is if you have a look at the picture that's about to come up on your screen right now, let's have a look inside. Moving back to this potentiometer here, you can see that whoever's done the soldering wasn't likely to be somebody at the factory. There's also another problem with this, in that I suspect the tone control potentiometer pot isn't working properly. But we'll do what we can. Now then, humbuckers and 2 single coils. Nice variety of sounds. A master volume control, a master tone control, and a 5-way selector switch. Early models, this one being an early model, they have a jack input on the front, and that bridge is, I'm going to use the word ubiquitous, everywhere. I didn't learn Latin, but that's one thing I do know. There is an explanation as to why I know that, but I'm not going to offer it here. Anyway, there we are. Very, very standard block type string saddles. These are adjustable up and down, backwards and forwards. Very standard bridge plate there, and it was obviously in its early days supplied with a vibrato as well, because there's a hole for the vibrato to go through. Now, why is this guitar dangerous? Well, look at that. What do you notice? It's going to be dangerous if you're a naturist with a hairy belly and you are a shredder and you like playing your guitar au naturel, shall we say? Because you're going to get your hairy belly caught in these things here, and that might explain why those shredders often have a pained expression. Is it because they want to immerse themselves in the music, or have they got their belly hairs stuck in the springs? Okay, now that we've talked a little bit about the guitar, that it's light, that the headstock's well designed, that it's got a flat fingerboard and a very narrow neck profile, what does it sound like? Well, we're going to go through a Vox amplifier, a Valvetronics 40-watt amplifier. Everything's set to standard, but we've selected a USA Blues amplifier on the modelling side of things, but otherwise very much a sort of normal, straightforward, middle of the road. I'm going to put the volume control up a little bit here. We're going to start with the selector switch, pickup selector switch towards the neck, and the tone control fully clockwise. And there's a reason for that, because I'm going to adjust it anti-clockwise at the same time as the notes ring out, so you can see what, if any, changes there might be. Here we go. There's very little, if any, tone change. I need to say this right at the outset, until you get all the way anti-clockwise, and then it just cuts out the volume as well. Remember what I said about somebody messing about with the electrics? That's what you get, guys. Okay. So basically what I'm saying is, there doesn't sound to be much, if any, tonal variety when using the rotary tone control, and I suspect that's not a fault in design so much as a fault in this particular instrument and its history. Anyway, that's the pickup selection for the neck. Now let's move to the next position down. highway selector switch. Fourth position on the selector switch. All the way away from the neck, we've got the position number 5 on the selector switch, or number 1 depending on which way you're looking at it. Well, this guitar, what's the verdict? They were cheap when they were made, and that's pretty evident really, I think, overall in the quality of what you get, basically. They're okay. They are said to be a good learner guitar, and I think that's probably a very reasonable point, as long as they're set up correctly. This one wasn't, it is now. I've set up the string saddles so that the intonation is correct. The neck didn't need to be adjusted, it's absolutely fine as it is. And it is easy enough to handle. It's nice and light in weight. There's a reasonably good variety of sound types, even though if we accept that this tone control, the potentiometer or pot for the tone control, doesn't appear to be working properly, i.e. it doesn't make much change in terms of the tone when you rotate it either way, but when you go anti-clockwise all the way, it just cuts absolutely everything out. So there we are. Now then, once again, please subscribe. Please subscribe. It's great if you do. It's cheap. Well, in fact, it's free. But what it does is it makes the whole thing, that's the channel, more visible. So more people can share what you and I love, which is these things, guitars. I know I complain about them now and again, but the reality is I really like them. Anyway, this is Michael's Guitar Reviews. I hope you've enjoyed the video. I'd love it if you'd watch some of the other ones. There are 80 odd of them on the channel. And once again, subscribe. Happy playing. Bye for now.